Welcome back, everyone, to episode number 2 of the Y&T Deep Dive series here on Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Durling, joined by my co-host, John the Music Nut. Hello, John.
Hello, Tim. How you doing, buddy?
It hardly looks like we've moved, does it, since we did the first
Doesn't.
episode? It's amazing how
Yeah,
that
you look
is.
like you're in the exact same spot.
Yeah, a
I
little bit
really
to the
admire
left.
those cassettes behind you, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's my wall of cassettes. You can tell this is my sanctuary here. So yeah, we're back to talk about the second Y&T album, and we didn't rank the first album, and I wasn't planning on ranking them, but I do want to say that um, as much as I love this band, something has to come in last. Something has to come in last, and for me, it's the album we're talking about today.
Okay.
Doesn't mean it's bad. It just means mathematically something has to be at the bottom. So we're talking about the second Y&T album, 1978, Struck Down, with this wonderful little photo that looks like it was taken in a theater or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it was taken in a theater.
Oh, yeah. Look at the seats there. Yep.
Yeah, there's the boys on the back cover. Dave's got an interesting shirt on under that coat.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, 1978 London Records. I do want to show off a couple other things with the record itself because I think it's kind of illustrates the point that Y&T didn't have the best luck with labels. How rock and roll does this look?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not very, right?
It looks it looks more like Afternoon Delight or
Yeah,
something like that.
this label here. And by the way,
And that
this
looks more
record,
Stones.
in my opinion, is harder to find than the first one, and it's really scratched. But when I bought this off eBay, which I think was in the early 2000s, the cool thing was this was inside of it. Now, this is not period appropriate. It's like this is definitely from the Contagious era, given the picture, because that's it. They've got Jimmy DeGrasso and Joey Alves, but it's like,
oh yeah, there you go.
Win an autographed Kramer guitar at the show. And so let's see, what's that say? NorCal loudly presents Y&T with special guests Vicious Rumors and introducing Schizo and KRQR's on-air personality Lobster as Master of Ceremonies. I've heard of Lobster. Vets Memorial Auditorium, Santa Rosa, 8 p.m., Friday, July 8th. Tickets, $16.50 in advance. I thought that was kind of cool that this was dropped into the Struck Down record that I bought. Got nothing to do with it. This is another one that, like I said, it's really hard to find in any format, but I managed to find the 8-track version.
Wow.
The case. And awesome. The cassette. Now, this cassette you can find on eBay. I don't know why. There seems to be more of these than the first album. And as far as I know, those are the only 2 Y&T albums that were released on 8-track, as far as I know. Even though A&M Records released 8 tracks in 81 and 82, if they put Y&T ones out, there aren't very many of them. And right. This is like the first album. The first time I heard this album was in 1993 when Mondo Records reissued it. So this is an interesting album, to say the least, for a lot of reasons. But we'll let John start us off. We're just going through this song by song. And it starts off with the title song. What are your thoughts on Struck Down?
Okay, well, let me just say before we get started, this is much better recorded. The sound quality on here, David Robinson produced this album. I think the sound quality on this album is much better. Yes, there are things that date this album, but I definitely think it's a better recorded release. The title song, I think, is very good. I think Dave had already found his voice by this point. He sounds like the Dave we know and love by this point. I wrote heavier, tighter, better played. It's not a fast track. It's slow, but it's yet menacing and melodic. Great solo, wicked solo during the outro, which would become a theme for Y&T over the years. I think this is a very good opener. I like this quite a bit. And just to let y'all know, everybody watching or listening, this is not my least favorite Y&T album. We'll get to that later.
Yeah. That's a cool thing about this. We all love, we love this band, but we can all have different opinions on it. Like, for example, I think this album sounds horrible compared to the first album. To me, this album sounds like it's smothered in flange, smothered in effect, smothered in echo. And the producer, Jimmy Robinson, you see his name on a few things. They say he was hopped up on PCP when he did this record.
I read that too, and I wrote David Robinson here, but it's Jimmy Robinson.
David Robinson was the drummer in the Cars, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. That's
correct. I knew David Robinson. That's somebody.
Yes, exactly.
So the first time I heard Struck Down was when Yesterday and Today Live came out in 1991. Not only did I know what the original version sounded like, I didn't even know what Y&T's second album was called. This is pre-internet, and I knew their first album because of the best of 81 to 85 liner notes. It said the first album was self-titled as Yesterday and Today. Of course, I thought it was from 1980 because of Beautiful Dreamer. But it's amazing, like, before we just had the information at our fingertips. We just had to do our best, right?
Exactly.
But the liner notes inside Yesterday and Today Live revealed that, okay, the second album was called Struck Down, and I still think that Yesterday and Today Live, if you're going to introduce somebody to this band with a live album, that's the one to do it with, because
I agree with that.
The lineup was fantastic. Nothing against Joey or Leonard, but I mean, Steph Burns and Jimmy DeGrasso were just that's the Bruce Kulick, Eric Singer lineup of Y&T as far as I'm concerned. Like, they could play anything, right? Any part of it, they could just nail it, right? And so Dave introduces the title song of the second album, and to me, it's like a heavy, menacing blues. It's not a blues per se, but like I said in the book, it's my kind of blues. It's really cool, and the studio version's good too. I just the production's a bit of a distraction, but not much of one. A really, really cool song. I mean, the guitars are on fire, and Dave's vocals are improving. I mean, but 2 years of pounding the pavement and doing all those gigs has to do something for you, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, your voice is a muscle.
Yeah.
And the more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Yeah. I think for the second song, Pleasure in My Heart, what do you think of this one?
Okay, now this song, it's melodic. It will lead to what you hear later. And this is one of two really melodic songs on this album that I quite like. It is more of a mid-tempo song with a good riff. They pick up the pace during the solo, and then you hear some Leonard Hayes goodness in here. And I like this song again. I don't think it's great, but it's showing what's about to come on the next record. That menacing yet melodic hard rock that they do. I wouldn't necessarily say this is a menacing song lyrically, but it's melodic hard rock with a bite to it. Yeah.
It's not one of my favorites, but I can hear potential there. One thing that I never noticed before, and someone pointed this out to me, said this song sounds like Beautiful Dreamer. Not Beautiful Dreamer, Little Dreamer from the first Van Halen album.
Oh, okay.
You listen to the way the song starts. You can easily go.
Just add a few notes. That's all.
Add a few notes. Same key.
Yes.
These both came out in 78, so who knows? But I think the vocals are a little weak in the chorus, the way the Pleasure of My Heart comes in. But again, it's building blocks, and it's not bad per se. It's just not my preference. But yes, I like the changes in the middle of it. Leonard sounds great on this. I think if there's one aspect of the band that got recorded the best on this album, it was the drums, for sure. And that next one, speedy little number called Road. What are your thoughts on this one, John?
Which is very good, but ruined by the production values best kept in the 1970s. You were talking about flanger throughout the album. this is where it really ruins it, because you're getting into it, then you hear, and you're like,
Yeah. It's like
no.
you're wondering if something happened to a speaker.
Yes, exactly. That's how I feel about it. I mean, it ruins an otherwise strong track.
Yeah.
I when they go heavy, they're really good when they go heavy, but the production values hurt it.
This is one of my favorites on the album. I love the fact that, like, again, it's live off the floor. There's no metronome.
Yep.
Leonard speeds up and slows down at will. You know, the fills, the beginning, like really, really quick little snare fills, and of course the single bass pedal just working overtime. It
Yes.
slows down a little bit for the verses, I notice, but you know, but yeah, and then the flange, you know, when we go, come on, baby, I'm coming through, is a strong, like it's
Yeah.
flange overload. It's like they just learned how to use flange, and it's just draped on. It's just dripping in flange. And I've never heard a live version of this song. I would like to. Actually, that is not true. I got to talk about something at the end of this episode, but I've never heard an updated live version of it. I think it would be I think it'd be really cool. There's a cool song in there that they could do. And I also wonder if this song, like, you know, the Bay Area was best known in the early 80s for the thrash scene. This is a pretty fast song for 1978. And I know, like, Lars Ulrich, among others, cut their teeth going to see Y&T. I have to wonder if they just took songs like this. What if we did this, but like twice the BPM? Like,
Yeah.
you could make a really good thrash song out of this. But
Exactly. Oh yeah, exactly.
side one closer, Nasty Sadie. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, a little bit like in spirit, it reminds me a little bit of Alcohol, because it's got that good groove that would go over in the bars. It's about a different topic, but a relatable topic. I like it. I don't love it. You know, it's decent. That's as much as I can say about it.
I like the song. I think it's nice and sleazy and fun, and because Dave sings it, it's better vocalized than
Certainly,
Alcohol, but
no
it
doubt.
has one of my favorite drum intros. And when I used to have a drum set, I would sit and I would try that, like I would try to do that drum intro and do the boop 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 boop, and I couldn't because I suck. But I would try to do that. I would try to nail that drum intro. It's still one of my favorites. But yeah, I had a good way to close the side one off, and then a really different song for them, "Dreams of Egypt." What are your thoughts on this one?
Nice use of atmosphere on here. It's got a nice heavy riff. Leonard is fantastic on this. There's some memorable riff. It's solid. It's a good track. It's not reminiscent of what would come. It doesn't really lead to what would come later.
No,
But it is a different track for them. But it's one that I don't think it's a standout, but it's one that I do like.
I always wondered if they weren't listening to a lot of Rainbow when they did this song, because I hear that Egypto. It's got the Eastern sounding,
Yeah.
modality to it. Like it sounds like
Mhm.
Stargazer or something off of Rainbow Rising.
Yeah.
And it's not that's not a direction they would go in at all. Um,
Right.
it could have been a little. It could also be like a little bit of Zeppelin and Kashmir, and but I mean, it's might be Leonard's finest performance on a song on this album, because
Yeah.
he's just all over the kid on this. There's some cool vocal effects, on Dave's voice, almost like the echo preceding the signal. My friends, like that,
Yeah.
like that. It's
Okay.
it's a it, it's a curiosity, because you go back, if you're only familiar with Y&T from the mid '80s, this wouldn't even you might not even know it was the same band, even though it's the exact same
Exactly.
band. But
Exactly.
it's cool. These bands were learning, right? They were trying new things. Next up, another interesting song, "Tried to Show You." What do you think of this one?
Reminds me a little bit of Pleasure in My Heart, and the fact that they're trying to do something melodic yet memorable. They don't have it quite down yet. Nice, cool lyrical solo here from Dave again. Strong vocal on it. It's solid, memorable riff, decent verses. It's, they would do this better later on, but they're finding their style here. That's what I just think this is. They just hadn't really. It's not fully formed yet.
And the other interesting thing about this song is that it's got Sherry Curry
from the Runaways
on backing vocals. I think she had left the Runaways at that point, but you'd hardly know it. It would have almost been like, I almost wonder if it would have been different if they'd have given her a verse, or her and Dave traded vocals,
right?
Because otherwise, you can hear a female voice in the background, but you can't tell who it is. I don't know. I've never been too crazy about this song here. And it does remind me of Pleasure in My Heart for the same reason. It seems to fall a little flat. I can see what they're getting at, and is something that they would eventually perfect. The other thing, and I wrote about this in the book, is that in the late 90s, that band Eve 6 had that song Inside Out, and it goes down, 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 down. It's the exact same riff.
Yep. And that's true though.
It would come on the radio, and it would just annoy me because I'd be like, Y&T should be on the radio. But anyway.
Yes.
Next up's an interesting song. Another, and I never thought about this before, but you've got 4 songs on each of the sides. You've got a really heavy, slower one to start the side off, a more commercial sounding song, and then a really fast one.
Yep, that's true.
Now, 4th songs on each side are don't really follow that, but now we've got I'm Lost. What do you think of this version of I'm Lost?
Okay, well, like many, I heard it first on Yesterday and Today Live. Kicks ass. Love it. High on energy and passion, slow on the lyrics, but it's when they want to do something fast, they do it very, very well. I think this song kicks. It's one of the best songs on the album, and I can see why they revisited it.
I far prefer the musically incorrect version, not least of which is the fact that Dave's vocals got so much better. But also,
I would agree with that too.
Yeah, the recording is less claustrophobic. It's actually hard to make out the riff, how the riff actually goes in this version, because it's like it's so drenched in flange and not echo, but just it's a noisy recording. I don't know how else to say it. And I don't like the vocal on the original version, the round and round. Like I just don't like it. And David, round and round, like he puts more attitude into it, more melody, and there's a good song in there, and they brought it back to life. But
yes,
and that's no slight on Leonard on the original version, but yeah, I think they knew they had something, and I also think it's a really good choice when they re-recorded it, because as we talk about in the musically incorrect chapter, and we will revisit when we get there,
yes,
that's a dark album. And you've got songs like Confusion, Don't Know What to Do, I'm Lost. It fits.
Right.
It totally makes sense that they would redo it then. And finally, we get to nothing to do with Rainbow, but it's called Stargazer. Sometimes, depending on the version you get, subtitled Round and Round. What do you think of this one, John?
I don't think much of it. This is Phil's song. They're trying to go Prague. They're trying to do electric light orchestra stuff at the beginning. They're doubling and tripling the vocals. The middle part is decent, ends heavy. I mean, it's one of these songs where they're trying to go Prague, and there's a few good moments, but no, my least favorite song on the album. This isn't who they are. I don't think this works.
It might be my least favorite Y&T song. And Phil was awesome. He was a great bass player. He was smart in his bass lines. It wasn't just, if it was a one note thing, it's because the song called for it, but he was a really busy bass player when he wanted to be. Great lyricist and a great background vocalist. But as we talked about in the previous one, he was not a lead vocalist. And the funny thing about Phil Kennemore is that you look at Phil Kennemore and you listen to the way he sings, he is practically a doppelganger for Tom Peterson of Cheap Trick, because Tom, they look alike. They look like they could be brothers to me when I see, especially
guys,
late 70s photos of them, the long dark hair. And I don't like Tom Peterson's voice either. It's got that thin, when I hear like something like "I Know What I Want," it's like, when you got Robin Zander and when you got Dave Meniketti, why would you bother having Phil sing it? To me, yeah, and again, this is not, Phil's great. Phil was great, but he just wasn't the lead singer. So you're already behind the 8 ball. I just don't think the song needed to be, I never thought about the ELO thing before, but you're absolutely right. And of course, by extension, we know Phil's a big Beatles fan. I mean, I'm sure they all were. They're named after a Beatles album. That doesn't mean they necessarily would sound good doing Beatles-esque things. And then when it gets fast, it's just, what it kind of reminds me of is a song I certainly hadn't heard at the time, but on Unearthed Volume 1, they stuck at the very end of the CD a song they recorded in 1974 called Rockazoid Rolleroid, which was obviously not meant to be taken seriously.
Right.
I get the same vibe here. And if this had appeared on one of those, rarities, I'd be like, hey, isn't that cool? I don't think it should have taken up space on one of their albums, but
yeah,
it did. And, they went for it, and, it is what it is, I guess. But there you go. That's Struck Down, my least favorite Y&T album, but I still think there are some strong songs on it. But I can see, even if London Records hadn't put their popular music department to rest, which they did at the time, I still don't think this album would have stood much of a chance. Now, I can't picture anything from this album getting any radio play. I really, really can't. I mean, in the years to follow, they would just go from strength to strength as far as how they sounded live, how they were able to write, how Dave was able to find his voice. But these early stepping stones are important to hear. These guys had talent right from the beginning, and they had a spark that would lead into something wonderful. And I'm glad that we get to hear these albums and go, yeah, they were really good when they started out, and no wonder they got so good later. I alluded to this earlier. There's one other thing I want to talk about, John, which I don't know how easy this is to find. I happen to find a used copy of Discogs. This is it. What it says here, it's small print, but it says up at the top, Yesterday and Today, live record plant, 1974.
Okay.
So this is a CD that was put out by a company called Vox, which is not, I don't know, it might be the only thing that they did, but this is a 9-song CD, which was recorded for KSAN, live from the record plant, Sausalito, November 8th, 1974. KSAN, I've heard of that station. They also, if you get the remastered version of the first 2 Montrose albums, there are radio shows that they recorded for KSAN. But I want to read the track listing on here because it's really interesting. This is 1974. First song's called Tonight. Then there's Beautiful Dreamer. Then there's a song called Feelin'. Number 4 is Stargazer. Number 5, My Heart Plays Too. Number 6, Alcohol. Number 7, Game Playing Woman. Number 8, Road. And number 9, another unreleased song called Baby Blue. So there's 3 songs on here that never made any of Y&T's albums. But you can see that they had a batch of songs to choose from for those first 2 albums, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4 songs from the debut, and then there's 2 songs that ended up on Struck Down. It's well recorded. It's not bad. If you can find it, it's worth checking out, especially if you love the early Y&T stuff. And of course, if you can find a copy of this, that you got both of those albums in one spot. So yeah, Struck Down, not my favorite, but I put it on once in a while because it's Y&T, and I just don't think they did a bad album, in my opinion. So, John, thanks for doing this once again. And yeah, we're just going to keep going, guys. We're going to go through the entire Y&T studio catalog. If you want to find out more, again, I'm going to plug my book shamelessly, Down for the Count, the Y&T album review. John, of course, himself contributed to it generously. Some great
Thank you.
insights from everybody on this, available through Amazon. And John, thank you for sitting in on deep dive number 2. And I can't wait to keep this going.
Thank you for having me, Tim. I appreciate it. I love talking Y&T, just like you.